Stop pretending your thoughts are yours. That voice telling you to be responsible, to stay quiet, to not ask too much from life, it's not yours. It was planted, installed, programmed. And you've been calling it personality ever since. Carl Jung didn't write for comfort. He wrote to confront. And here's what he knew before most of us were even born. Your entire identity might be a performance, rehearsed by trauma, directed by culture, applauded by systems that profit when you conform. You believe you're in control. But control is the most effective illusion ever sold. This isn't about conspiracy. This is about your nervous system, your inherited fears, your mother's sadness hiding in your voice. In this video, you won't hear "be yourself." You'll understand why you don't even know who that is anymore, and how the people you love, the shows you watch, and even the way you speak are all fingerprints of a silent programming you never consented to. If your life feels hollow, if your dreams feel recycled, if your inner voice sounds like an angry parent or a disappointed teacher, it's not your fault, but it is your responsibility. Because once you realize your mind has been hijacked, you'll have two choices. Keep playing the role they gave you, or burn the script, and begin again, this time as someone real. There's a quiet moment that happens in all of us. Maybe it's while washing dishes, standing in traffic, or staring at a ceiling fan late at night. A thought floats in, sudden, absolute, and you accept it without question. I'm a failure. I'll never be enough. I must do this, or they won't love me. But what if that thought isn't yours? What if you didn't think it? What if it thought you? Carl Jung warned us. People don't have ideas. Ideas have people. That phrase alone is enough to tear the ground beneath our illusion of self-control. Because most of us live our lives under a spell cast by voices we've long forgotten, speaking from shadows we've never dared to confront. Every culture has its myths, not just the ones in books or temples, but the ones whispered at dinner tables and drilled into us at school. Be strong. Don't cry. Success looks like this. Jung's concept of the collective unconscious suggests that we inherit not just eye color or bone structure, but patterns of belief, behavior, fear. Imagine the mind not as a blank slate, but as a theater already set, the actors rehearsed, the script written. When you shout at yourself in shame, whose voice is that? Is it your mother's disapproval? A school teacher's judgment? A commercial telling you what beauty means? That's psychological manipulation at its most dangerous, the kind that doesn't feel like manipulation at all. And this isn't just theory. Think of a man who never cries, never speaks of his pain. He works 14-hour shifts, provides for his family, and dies quietly in a chair one night. His whole life was built on the belief that expressing emotion made him weak. But did he choose that belief? Or did 1,000 years of societal conditioning carve it into his DNA? Jung would call this possession, not by spirits, but by unconscious ideas wearing his skin like a mask. He thought he was strong, but perhaps he was only obedient. Now picture a young woman scrolling through her phone, comparing herself to filtered faces and sculpted bodies. A voice in her says, "You're not enough." She begins to eat less, smile less, live less. That voice didn't come from her soul. It was programmed, drip-fed, through a culture obsessed with control. Mind control doesn't always come with chains. Sometimes it comes with trends, slogans, and childhood lullabies. Jung's work demands that we interrogate these voices, not just with logic, but with deep inner silence, with solitude that allows the true self to speak. And yet we resist that silence. Why? Because it's terrifying to realize how much of us is not really us. To admit we are products of unconscious mind patterns is to face the fact that we have never really been free. Not in our decisions, not in our desires. Jung didn't offer easy comfort. He urged confrontation. He believed in the shadow. That darker side we bury because it's inconvenient, ugly, or too powerful. But until we look there, we are merely puppets dancing to music we didn't compose. And here's the trap. The longer we pretend we're in control, the deeper the illusion holds. A man once told me he hated his job, but couldn't leave. That's just how it is, he shrugged. But is it? Or was that resignation taught to him by exhausted parents, by television heroes who never complained, by a culture where complaining is weakness? When we normalize suffering as identity, we stop questioning the origin of that suffering. Jung invites us to go deeper, not to break the chains with force, but to see they were never truly real to begin with. Identity becomes a prison when it's built on borrowed bricks. So how do we begin to reclaim the architecture of thought? We begin by slowing down, by noticing. The next time you have a thought, especially a painful one, don't react. Ask, where did this come from? Who benefits from me thinking this way? Is this mine or inherited? This isn't some spiritual fluff. This is radical psychological hygiene. Jung called it individuation, the lifelong task of becoming who you truly are beneath all masks. Not a perfect self, not an invented one, but a whole one. And wholeness requires breaking apart every idea that ever claimed ownership over your mind. And maybe that's the scariest part, that if you stripped away every belief, every should and must, every rule and expectation, what would remain? Who would remain? The fear of emptiness keeps many of us clinging to the cage. But emptiness, Jung would argue, is not death. It is the space where rebirth begins. And if you're brave enough to enter that space, you'll find something most never do, your own voice. But to find it, you'll have to let go of the comfort of the familiar. And that's where the illusion of originality begins to crack. Most people walk through life wearing a mask they didn't choose. They vote, argue, fall in love, choose careers, all while believing they're the ones in charge. But stop and ask, when did you first believe what you believe? Who planted that seed? Jung knew something unsettling, that what we call original thoughts are often nothing more than echoes. Inherited opinions, absorbed narratives. The brain is a sponge, and society hands us the water. We soak up ideas from childhood cartoons, church sermons, schoolyard whispers. By the time we're old enough to think critically, the walls are already built, and we confuse the prison for a temple. Look around at the world. Trends go viral overnight. Millions adopt the same slang, wear the same shoes, mimic the same dance. And yet, everyone swears they're just being themselves. This is societal conditioning in action, a mass hypnosis where conformity masquerades as creativity. Jung would say we are possessed, not by spirits, but by collective forces far older than us. Archetypes, myths, inherited patterns. Think of the rebel who dresses exactly like every other rebel, the spiritual guru repeating recycled mantras. They believe they're original. But originality isn't mimicry, it's confrontation. And most people never dare confront the roots of their identity. Take the average worker. They spend decades in a job they dislike, but never question the structure. That's just life, they say. But where did that belief come from? Was it carved into them by generations of tired fathers, or whispered through sitcoms that normalize misery? Jung called this the collective unconscious, a deep psychic inheritance shared by humanity. It's not just personal trauma that shapes us, it's ancestral submission. The illusion of choice thrives in repetition. You think you're choosing, but how many of your choices were never yours to begin with? Now let's bring this down to earth. A woman dreams of becoming a writer, but every time she tries, a voice tells her she's not talented enough. That voice? It's her old teacher, or her mother, or a rejection letter from years ago. And yet, she calls it her own fear. But that fear was adopted, just like beliefs are, just like shame is. Psychological manipulation doesn't always happen through coercion. Sometimes it's passed down like an heirloom. What you think is yours may be a hand-me-down from someone too broken to dream. Jung urges us, trace it back. Don't accept every thought as truth just because it wears your accent. There's danger in this too. Once you begin questioning, you start to see the world differently. Conversations sound scripted. News anchors repeat the same phrases. Politicians offer the same fake smiles. Even your inner voice. It starts sounding like a stranger. This is the cost of waking up. Jung didn't promise comfort. He promised wholeness. And wholeness requires tearing down everything false, even if what's false is everything you've ever known. That's not easy, but it's necessary. Because the longer you cling to a second-hand identity, the farther you drift from the person you were meant to become. So what can you do? Start by keeping a thought journal. Every time a strong emotion hits, anger, shame, desire, write the thought behind it. Then ask, is this mine? Where did I learn this? Who benefits from me believing this? Over time, you'll start to see a pattern, a map of inherited thought. That's the first step toward individuation, becoming an integrated self rather than a copy-paste version of someone else's fears. True identity is forged, not found. And it can only be forged by confronting the illusion of originality and burning it down. It's like peeling layers from an onion. The more you peel, the more it stings. But underneath, there's something raw, something real. And it's that rawness, that unfiltered essence, that Jung believed was the beginning of freedom. Not freedom to do whatever you want, but freedom to want from a place that is truly yours. A thought not inherited, a dream not borrowed. But to get there, you'll need to face the system that shaped you. Not just society, but your family, your culture, your media, your idols. And that's when the most difficult question of all arises. Because if most of your thoughts aren't yours, then who are you? And if the stories you've believed your entire life were never written by you, then maybe your entire identity is a costume, a performance, a script passed down through generations. But here's the twist. If it was built, it can be unbuilt. And when you finally drop the act, what's left is something no one else can steal. But to reclaim that truth, you'll need to go deeper. Because your mind wasn't just conditioned by the past, it was hijacked. And it's time you found out by who. Imagine waking up in a room you've always lived in, only to realize every object inside was placed there by someone else. That's what Jung believed modern identity has become. Not a product of introspection, but of installation. Installed by culture, media, school, religion, and perhaps most heartbreakingly, by the people who raised us. You think you chose your opinions, your tastes, your boundaries. But pause for a second. If you had grown up in a different country, in a different house, under a different name, would you still be you? Or is your identity a script programmed into your nervous system before you ever had a chance to ask questions? Let's talk about school, the factory of societal conditioning. Children are taught obedience before curiosity, conformity before authenticity. They're graded not on depth of thought, but on replication of approved ideas. The bell rings, they move. The test comes, they memorize. Their job is not to think, it's to follow. And this rhythm follows them into adulthood. Jung believed that education, when corrupted by power, becomes a tool for mind control. Not with whips or walls, but with silence. A child who questions is a problem. A child who obeys becomes successful. So they grow up fluent in suppression, trained to mistrust their inner voice. Then there's media. News headlines framed for outrage, beauty standards crafted by algorithms, ideologies packaged in 30-second reels. When you hear the same message every day, it stops sounding like propaganda. It starts sounding like common sense. Buy this to be happy. Think this to be right. Fear that to be safe. This is psychological manipulation at a systemic level. You're not just watching media, it's watching you. studying your desires, reinforcing your fears, curating your feed until you mistake your reflection for your will. Jung warned that the more disconnected we are from our unconscious, the easier it is to be controlled. And make no mistake, control thrives in disconnection. But what about family? Surely they mean well, and most do. But even love can program limitation. A father who says, "Be realistic." A mother who says, "Don't embarrass us." These voices come wrapped in affection, but they are still commands. And those commands become internalized scripts, played over and over in our decisions. We date people who feel familiar, but really, they feel like home. Even if home was chaos. We take jobs we hate because ambition feels like betrayal. Jung called this inherited self the persona, a mask we wear to be accepted, but which often suffocates the soul. How do you escape a prison you can't see? You begin by noticing the bars. Ask yourself, what makes me angry? What scares me? What do I automatically reject or defend? Then trace it. Who taught you that? Where did that rule come from? The goal is not to destroy every belief, but to examine them. Jung believed healing begins when the unconscious becomes conscious, when you stop reacting and start remembering. Not remembering facts, but remembering who you were before the world told you who to be. That's not rebellion. That's individuation, the sacred revolt of becoming whole. And this process is not linear. You'll lose friends, you'll question everything, you'll feel alone. Because reclaiming your identity means breaking contracts you didn't know you signed. It means telling your mother no, your boss, I disagree, your partner. That's not who I am anymore. You'll disappoint people. But in that disappointment, you'll rediscover truth. And truth, Jung said, doesn't come from validation. It comes from integration. From putting together all your broken pieces and calling it a name that's finally yours. That's how you steal your mind back from the culture that hijacked it. But let's not romanticize this journey. The culture that shaped you will not applaud your escape. It will guilt you, shame you, offer you distractions dressed as freedom. That's the cost of waking up. You'll start to see the codes, the false choices, the marketed values, the engineered desires. You'll see how deep the programming runs. And once you see it, you can't unsee it. That awareness becomes both a burden and a gift. Because now, every decision you make can either reinforce the lie or break it. And with each break, something remarkable happens. A new voice emerges. Not louder, but truer. Not perfect, but present. A voice unshaped by fear, untouched by approval. It speaks in moments of stillness. It doesn't shout. It doesn't sell. It simply knows. And when you hear it, really hear it, you'll realize the most revolutionary act in a world built on programming is this: to be fully, unapologetically, indivisibly you. But that voice takes time to find. And before you can trust it, you'll need to silence all the others. And that's where our path turns inward, to the final, most personal revolution of all. Now that you've seen how deep the programming runs, what are you going to do with this truth? Will you keep calling fear caution? Will you keep mistaking silence for peace? Or will you finally ask, whose life am I really living? You don't need to fix everything overnight, but you do need to stop lying to yourself. Because every time you ignore that tightness in your chest, every time you swallow your words to keep the peace, you reinforce a prison built by other people's beliefs. So here's your challenge. Pick one thought you've always believed about yourself. I'm not creative. I'm not good enough. This is just who I am. And ask, with brutal honesty, where did that thought come from? Who profits from me believing it? You don't need permission to change, but you do need courage. And maybe this video was the crack in the wall you've been waiting for. If this stirred something in you, something painful, something real, don't walk away. Leave a comment. Tell the truth, even if it shakes. And if you want to keep digging, to keep reclaiming the parts of you they tried to erase, subscribe, turn on notifications. This isn't just a video, it's a starting point. Now it's your move.